Hey everybody, it's Gretchen. Thank you for joining me. I'm really excited for this book club. I should warn you up front that a friend of mine and fellow book clubber, just got a laugh book clubber, was planning to join me today, and then poor thing, she had an accident, and so she sent me pictures. She has a giant bruise on her face, and so Amy is trying to call in right now to our meeting, and sorry, I was checking on the there was a technical issue. Okay, so Amy is going to try and call in if she can. So hopefully she'll be able to join us. She's a good friend of mine. She's known me since my obnoxious teenager years, and you know, she must have a good sense of humor because she dealt with me as a teenager with humor and grace. So Amy, I really hope you can join us. And I am gonna soldier on without her if I'm able to. Okay, so here is what's going on tonight. Amy was the one who recommended Be Frank with Me, which we're going to discuss tonight, and I absolutely loved it. And so I asked her if she wanted to join me for the conversation, and so hopefully she will be able to. If not, I am prepared to have a discussion, and I'm hoping that some of you are here as well. So shoot me a comment if you're here. I love to make these as interactive as possible. In the meantime, I will show you that I am drinking wine tonight. Last week I made a custom cocktail called something like the Cactus Rose or something, and it packed a punch. I was like, woo, by the end of it. As I like to say, close to telling secrets that I don't even have. So a few housekeeping things before we get started. The way that you participate is by typing into your comments box. I can see those comments in my box. I can't talk and do technical support at the same time. I can see your comments in my box, and see what I mean? I can't do both things at once. Hang on, just give me 1 second. You know what, everybody? Hang on, I'm not seeing any. I'm not seeing any comments. So I'm going to stop this. Just stay where you are. Stay absolutely where you are, because I want to make sure I can see your comments while we're doing this. Okay, I know people are on. I'm going to wait. Oh, okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for coming through, Bethany. Okay, now I don't have to, yeah, okay, now I don't have to do anything. Ah, yay, okay, Bethany is here, Renee is here. Thank you, everybody. Oh, we've got Jody, all these faithful book clubbers. I love it. Okay, so like I was saying, I like to make this as interactive as possible. Oh, and Carlotta's here. Yay, I love all you guys. Okay, couple of housekeeping tips. I have been able to schedule 2 more book clubs so that you have time to get ahead on some of your reading. Next week, I'm really excited. One of the first writers who was really supportive of me as I jumped into this whole program of author's life is Anne Garvin, and I also happen to love her books. She is really, really funny, but heartfelt at the same time. Hi, Anne, it's great to see you. So we are going to be discussing her book, and she's going to join me live. It's actually her third book. It's called I Like You Just Fine When You're Not Around, and it was a bestseller. And I'm really excited to not only discuss the book, but to have Anne here. She's just a delight. So we're going to do that next week, which is the 21st. And then on the 28th, oh my goodness, I have such a great surprise for all of you. Okay. Okay. I was reading the comments. First and foremost, we have, on the, let's see, next week's 21st. On the 28th, we have Pamela Klinger-Horn, who we refer to as the Minnesota fairy godmother of books. And she's going to be with me discussing a book I absolutely loved and she loved too. So that will also be a great discussion. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. So if you haven't read either of those books yet, they're available in all formats. And of course, with Eleanor Oliphant, Pamela actually works for Excelsior Bay Books, Minnesota. So I have included the link to that bookstore in the posts about the event. And if you want to support them as our bookstore partner, that would be terrific. Now, such a surprise. I'm so excited. This is how the author world works. I am thrilled. If you look in your comments, we actually have the author joining us tonight. And that is thanks to Renee Rosen, who's another author who I'm hoping to have on here soon. Julia Claiborne Johnson, the author of our book tonight, is joining us. She was such a good sport. She just saw it pop up on Twitter, I think thanks to Renee Rosen, and she said, if I have time, I will join you tonight for the discussion. So thank you, Julia. If you guys have questions that obviously, you want to direct to the author, please put them in your comments. Julia, I can't wait till I'm out in California sometime. We'll have to have a drink or, whatever, 3. So I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you for joining. I should also say, when she sent me a message, she's in the middle of edits, and so I know where my head is when I'm in the middle of edits. So this is a huge thing for her to be able to pull herself out of that and join us. So I don't know if we'll have her for the whole time, but we'll certainly make use of it at the beginning. So all of you be thinking of your questions for Julia. And if you have them, don't wait to shoot them out, especially since I don't know how long she'll be with us. So if you have questions or comments or things that you loved about the book, please shoot them at Julia, and I will just stop my conversation throughout, and we'll take them as they come. Okay, let's jump into the book. If Amy joins us. Okay, Julia says, you guys talk first. I'm going to recover. I turned in my line edits 7 minutes ago and I have low brain function. Oh, God bless you. I told her today, I always feel like Gollum admiring the ring when I come out of line edits. Like, my precious. I'm just like not functioning at all. All right. So here's how I'm going to start. Julia's cracking me up. No, you talk. All right. One of the things that they always tell aspiring authors, aspiring writers, anything having to do with getting published, is readers have to be hooked from, if not the first sentence, the first paragraph, the first page. And I have to say, Julia, you wrote one of the best first lines of any novel that I have read in recent memory, and it is this. Because the station wagon blew up in the fire, Frank and I took the bus to the hospital. And you had me at when the station wagon burned up in the fire. After that, I was like, okay, let's go for it. Just the fact that they had a station wagon, for starters, because who has a station wagon anymore? And 2, blew up in a fire, and they have to take the bus on the hospital. So from that point on, people told me I would love the book, and from that point on, I was so, Julie says it took her about a month to write that. Well, It was a month well invested. I think you did a great job. Ange wants to definitely know where the idea of Frank originated. He's one of the most interesting characters ever. I agree. He really was interested. So as Julia recovers her brain power, she can think about that, and we'll come back to that in a minute. I like to start by doing a reading from the book, and if my e-reader will cooperate, here we go. I loved this passage as an early passage, and it doesn't have any spoilers in it. So it's the beginning of chapter 2, and the reason I chose this is because one of the strengths in this book, besides this humor, is that Julia, the author, is able to get so much across in description and dialogue about the book. So chapter 2 is the introduction of Frank as a character, but it's also the first substantive conversation between Alice and Mimi. And Mimi starts off by saying, "His name is Frank. M.M. Banning and I were seated on the living room couch, watching her son playing outside in the hot, bright sun. The kid, dressed in a tattered tailcoat and morning pants, accessorized with bare feet and a grubby face, looked like some fictional refugee from the covers of Oliver Twist, one who'd walked all the way to Los Angeles from Dickens' London and had slept in the ditches at night along the way." Incredible sentence. Congratulations. When I said Frank was playing, what I mean is that he was assaulting a peach tree with a yellow plastic baseball bat, scattering the green midsummer fruit as if the future of the human race depended on it. "Does he always dress like that?" I asked. "Some version of it." "That's fantastic. Most kids don't care about their clothes that much. They're just as happy wearing t-shirts and a pair of shorts. My mother always says the best way to connect with anybody as a mother was to find a way to compliment her child. An approach that served me well when I taught at the private school, even the times when it had been a stretch to come up with something nicer to say than, 'Your child, your child is such a good little mouth breather.'" I know. She sounded more irritated with me than pleased. Strike one. I tried again. "Frank looks pretty energetic." "I go to sleep exhausted," she said. "I wake up tired." "Yes, I had a nice flight. Thank you so much for asking." Frank went at the tree again, but in slow-mo, kabuki style kind of way, his swing stylized with his face a mask. I decided to give it one more go. "Hey, is that a t-ball bat?" I asked. "I used to coach t-ball at the t-ball team at a private school where I worked." Then Mimi says, "Then you should know a t-ball bat when you see one." I love that passage. I mean, it's less than a page, I think, and it tells so much about the child and about the mother, Mimi. And we know from the outset in just a few paragraphs that we're going to get off to a pretty incredible start. Plus the fact I'm a mother of 3 boys, and thankfully they've all grown into human beings now. You know, one of them is still 13, and that's not quite human. That's pretty much as close to animal as you can get. However, the other 2 are really, really almost fully formed. And the fact that he's hitting all the peaches off the tree with a baseball bat just about killed me. We had a friend of one of our sons do that to our apple trees the very first day, or the very first year they actually gave fruit. And that's as close to murder as I've ever come, was with that kid. He's also the kid who shot our little dog with a Nerf gun, chased her around the house. She was traumatized forever. All right. So Ange had asked where the idea of Frank originated. He's one of the most interesting characters ever. I love it. Bethany asked, how long did it take to write the entire book? And Julia answers, 5 years to write the whole book. That is really quite something, because Renee says, wow, how did you stay motivated to stick with it? Now I'm assuming Julie means that's probably from the origination of the idea until maybe publication. I don't know. I know that, you know, it's a long process to get the book, into the hands of readers, no matter how long you work on it up front. But if that's 5 years of getting it to an agent or to an editor, that's really impressive. However, I mean, you can see through the crafting of the book how carefully you did it, how that's one of the other things I really love about Frank is that he reminded me distinctly. I happen to grow up, it's really too bad Amy's not joining us because she knew my sister growing up. I grew up with I still have a special needs sister. She has Down syndrome. And there's something, it's like a superpower they have growing up in a family with a special needs child, because their world takes over. I mean, in order for you to interact with them and for them to know that they have their needs met and that they're cared for, and for you to even connect with them, you have to so fully integrate yourself into that world. And for an author to write that world is a feat in and of itself. What did I write? I took some notes earlier today. Yeah, I just say, I think it's very, the ones who love Frank most have to enter his world so thoroughly, not only to keep him safe, but also to gain his trust and show him that they care. And that was absolutely my experience with my sister. The thing with books like this too, I was just having a conversation with my agent the other day, because I'm thinking about putting a Down syndrome main character in my next book. And we had a conversation about how imperative it is that character become a fully formed person with flaws and with a growth arc and everything, so that they don't become, my agent put it so perfectly, inspiration porn. You know, you don't want to make them perfect little angels so that everyone feels like if they could just live more simply, everything would be beautiful. And Frank is that. He's a fully formed character. Julia says yes. From the start to sold, it took her 5 years. Okay. She had children. Well, you know, life gets busy when that happens. Couldn't work in the summer or on vacation. Okay, Christine says, I love the opening line. This is some Irma Bombeck level writing. That is terrific. I absolutely agree. I love Irma Bombeck. That is the best compliment I can give. This is such an odd experience, Julie says. Well, you're being quite a sport. Oh, Jana says she knows my sister. She has a superpower. Ange is very impressed with the research Julia did, creating Frank's immense knowledge. Oh, yes, I have to agree with that. Now, you'll see today in honor of Frank, you can't really see it, but I am wearing my velvet blazer and a linen shirt. I have no idea if those go together, but Frank in my mind was, you know, always dressed to the nines. So I was like, at minimum, I could pull out my velvet and my linen. Julia says, all the fashion knowledge is from magazine writing. She has a wealth of useless fashion information and uses Hollywood information. Oh, inspiration porn. Okay, so since we're on the topic of Frank, I had a question that I want people to kind of think about. And maybe we can throw this out to Julia too, if she wants to answer it as the author. One of the things that struck me was, you know, Frank had his idiosyncrasies, to be sure, but one of the most interesting ones in the book is that he's so obsessed not just with movies, but movies from a certain era, and especially gangster era movies. So I wondered what you all thought of that. And Julia, if you have any answers for us on why you chose that era for the movies, or that era for Frank to model his life on, that would be terrific. So Julia says, also, I love awful jokes. That's how they all came together. All right. Sorry, usually this is in conversation and I'm missing Amy, but Hey, we're getting some good conversation going. All right. The other thing about Frank is his character arc. It's really interesting because in a typically developed character, you can kind of see where they're going or see where they ought to go. And I would be interested to see, while you guys are talking about Frank and his fascination with the movies and gangster era movies at that, what you thought his character arc was. How did you see him develop over the course of the book? And if so, how? Ange says she thinks Frank chose that era strictly for the costumes. Julia says, oh, I can tell you, I like them. Also, when the kids were little, we would all watch Disney movies and old Hollywood movies. We live close to the handprints at Man's Chinese. Oh, well, no wonder you had that inspiration. That's really terrific. I love that. You'll have to tell us who your favorite handprint is, and if you ever actually stick your hands down in there. I don't know if you'd want to do that these days. Yeah. So yeah. Also think about the character arc. While you're thinking about that, I'll talk about some of my impressions of Alice's character journey. I thought it was really interesting because what I wrote was, it's not as obvious as is so often the case in novels. Yes, we learn at the end that she's told and agrees that she believes that she's always in the right. But our experience as readers is interesting because she's been essentially left alone with Frank day in and day out. So how is she to know what's right or wrong for him? So do you think that was, I think that actually beneficial to her character. If someone were to be in that situation who didn't trust themselves or didn't trust their instincts, whether they were right or not, and I know it causes problems with her, but whether they were right or not, I don't think that person would have survived. I think, one too many knocks on Mimi's door in the first 24 hours and she would have been on the street. So in the long run, I really do think that Alice had to function like that. But I want to hear your impressions on that. Julia says, Tom Mix, Cowboy Sword, the Hoof Prints. Those are all your favorites, I take it. That's the Hoof Prints. Oh my gosh, I haven't ever gone and looked closely enough. I guess I forgot about that. Julie says, I hope I'm not cramping your style. Oh my God, no, not at all. First of all, I don't really have a style. Secondly, I consistently am showing my boobs off on camera. I mean, and poor Amy has a huge black eye across the side of her face. So I'm glad to have all this interaction. Okay, let's keep going. Keep the questions coming, everybody. Yeah, so Alice's character development, do you think she needed to be strong like that? Frank's character development, kind of, in my opinion, I think there's probably only so much development you can do, but he does, seem to come to some realizations over the course of the book. And for a character like him, I think subtle is probably better. I don't think he would have come to huge leaping conclusions about his life. You guys can argue with me if you want. Okay, I will say, the one character I had a hard time relating to was Mimi, the mother. And I don't think, and that's not because she wasn't superbly written, she really was, but what did I rather over the course of the story? She's prickly, as Mr. Vargas calls her. Plus, it feels very much throughout the book as if she's essentially sacrificed her time almost entirely with Frank for the book. But then I had to really realized what other choice or responsibility to be able to support her child, which the book has become her only means of doing. So yeah, I grew to respect her for that, but I really did have a hard time liking her. Now I have a weakness in the books that I love. I have a weakness for loving hard to love characters, the quirky, very unique, hard to love ones. So I did have a fascination with her throughout the book. I think that's probably the fairest way to put it. I had a fascination with her and a respect for her throughout the book. But I had a hard time liking her, and that's okay. Julia says, I'm a brown noser and always want to shout out the answers. This is the rare time when I am right. Anne says, it was tough watching how Mimi treated Alice, but Mimi was certainly a very complicated character. Yeah, it was hard to watch, especially since Alice is, like we talked about, almost entirely responsible for Frank. Also, that's why Julia says, also, that's why Alice thinks she knows everything. Apple not far from the tree, because I assume you're saying because you think you like to know everything. At the end, I'll tell you what his breakthrough is. I want to see if anybody got it. Oh man, now you're gonna make me look bad if I didn't get it. Oh, Carlotta says, isn't that a good sign of, or isn't that a sign of good writing, even if you don't like the character? Yeah, I agree. It's a sign of incredible writing. If you can draw readers into, if you can get them invested in a character that they don't necessarily have to like, amen. Yeah, that. Okay. Yep, you're exactly right. Julia says, I'm assuming about Mimi. Also, that's why there's not a lot of her in the book. A little goes a long way. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, now, here comes the gossipy time. Mimi dislikes Alice because she sees herself in her. Wow, look at me. You gave me some pause. Let me put my glasses on to consider that one. No, these are my old glasses. I can't stand to look at. Oh yes, you're welcome. It is superbly written, Julia. She sees herself in her, like, as in supremely confident and a go-getter. I could see that. Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so there's a challenge out to the readers. Julia says she wants to see if any of us see what, let's see, I lost it. Oh, Frank's. At the end, I'll tell you what his breakthrough is, but she wants to see if anybody gets it. So a challenge has been issued. Let's see if you guys get it. Anne says, I wish you could see us all laughing with you. Also, she's jealous. Oh, that makes sense. Mimi thought she was going to be such an awesome mom. Oh my God, don't we all? Yeah, her heartbreak, actually, that's a really good point. Her pain is right there on the page. And because of her style, it comes across as her being resentful or angry with Frank from time to time. But it really is pain. And I can only imagine the fact that she doesn't have a partner makes it even that much more difficult, because she doesn't have anyone to back her up or to, and Frank loves Alice. Yeah, he does. She doesn't have anyone to back her up or to, give her alternative ideas. Of course, she has Xander, but that's a little bit different. Okay, Mimi's a fascinating character though. And I couldn't help but think the entire time of the female version of J.D. Salinger. Let's talk about Xander. I wish we had like our raise hand feature on this, but tell me two things. Tell me, number one, if you were as pissed off at him as I was from the very moment he made his moves on Alice. I mean, yeah, we saw it coming, right? But tell me if you were pissed off at him for it, and or pissed off at Alice for taking him up on it, although she really comes around. And number two, tell me if you think that if there was a period of time where you thought maybe Xander was Frank's dad. Okay, Anne says her relationship with Frank is so complicated. Yeah, I have a very creative son who always danced and still does to his own drummer. It's not always easy. You love their energy and creativity, but also ache for the differences that bring them grief. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's that helplessness of motherhood that is just hard to describe. You love your child for who they are, and yet you grieve for them at the same time for who they are in some ways because of the pain you can anticipate. Julia says, yes, Salinger. Yay, I got something right. Okay, so yeah, I'm waiting to see the responses come in on Xander. I will say I gave him the stink eye every time he came up. Although I will say he was really, in my opinion, he was really good to Mimi. And even more than Mimi, he was really good to Frank. It was really all about Frank for Xander, I think, in the end. And he, I guess, talking about people who dance to their own, drummer, Xander did too. He had a lifestyle that not a lot of people would have been able to accept, and yet he was accepted in Mimi and Frank's family. And so, I mean, of course he fit in there just perfectly, right? His disappearing acts pissed me off. Oh, yes. And when I worked in magazines, the fashion people, everybody wanted to be them when they were growing up. But I used to think how they must have gotten the bejesus kicked out of them on the playground. Yeah. In fact, I mean, he's not fashion, but Paul Feig, the director, who directed, Freaks and Geeks and several episodes of The Office and Bridesmaids. I mean, he's a comic genius. And he's like Frank. He dresses to the nines. I kept thinking of Paul Feig. If you don't follow his Instagram channel, when you're done here, go and follow Paul Feig on Instagram, especially right now during quarantine. He's doing a 5 p.m. dance party, and every day at 5 o'clock where he mixes a new cocktail. And Paul, like, even when he's, I'm wearing elastic waist pants probably for the next 3 months, he is wearing a 3-piece suit every single day. But he has an autobiography that he wrote that is exceptionally well written, but he talks about that, being the oddball out and getting your ass kicked on the playground. Kelly, welcome from Texas. She was on the Texas Library Association list committee this year. Be Frank with Me made our list 25 books that are a pleasure to read. A lot of book clubs here use the list to choose their books. The committee really loved it. Congratulations, Julia. Carlotta saw it when she worked in retail. Everybody's looking for someone to copy. Okay, Xander and Frank, to me, says Julia, were a pair. Both had too much of something. Xander, too cute and talented and could skate by on that. Yep. He let it ruin him. Oh, I love that idea. Frank is too smart. Alice hopes it won't ruin him. I'm looking up Paul Feig's Instagram right now. Yeah, you'll love it. And if you leave comments, he answers often too. It's pretty amazing. Frank, to me, Anne says, is a liberal arts version of Sheldon Cooper. Very good. Okay, so I guess this is my question to Julia. Is it a common assumption among readers that, do you get this question often, do people assume that Frank is somewhere on the spectrum, maybe? It certainly came to mind for me through many of his characteristics. I think we assign that label a little bit too easily these days. However, at the same time, I think it's made us more accepting and more understanding of people who are a little bit different or possibly on the spectrum. But what really made me question it is when Mimi her backstory comes out, and she's so concerned about him, particularly in relationship to her brother, who she saw as so vulnerable, and obviously his vulnerability got the best of him. But she sees so much of Frank, her brother, and Frank, and it scares her to pieces. I also saw a lot of her fear on the page in relation to that. The interesting thing, and she makes a comment about it running his. I don't remember what she calls it, but she says it tends to run in families. It's really interesting too that there was so much of her in Frank. She's prickly, as Mr. Vargas calls it, and there's a lot of her in Frank too, which it would have been interesting. I mean, it didn't have a place in the book, but as a human being, it would have been interesting to see what she was like prior to her brother's death, and whether or not that exasperated any of this for her, or if she always sported these tendencies. Oh shoot, I'm breaking up a lot. I'm sorry guys, I don't know what to do about that. I told all my kids to get off streaming. Crap, hopefully it'll come through in the video. I don't know. Okay, so yes, she says, Anne says, totally agree with him about being on the spectrum. Julia said, didn't want to say he's on the spectrum. They make assumptions. But she says she didn't want to label him. Yeah, this book was about one kid, Frank. Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it, because we're not our labels. We are ourselves. Okay, it is almost time. Oh, you can hear just fine. Okay, good. I'm glad. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, and I want to, Anne says, to have not even looked up when her brother left to say goodbye really threw me for a loop. Yeah, there are some really emotional punches in this book, and that is one of them. That was, for me, that was one of the scenes that was easiest to picture too. I don't think that there's even a huge amount of description about that, but the detail that Julia zeroes in on was so clear to me about where he was and what he was saying, and then where he went. He went directly to the window, and then he was gone. I mean, you don't need a lot else. And then there's the aftermath. I went to school with kids like that. We just thought they were weird. Yeah. Daughter read To Kill a Mockingbird. I read it again at the same time, realized Boo must have been on the spectrum. Interesting. That's where the idea came from. It's easier to write that character than to raise him. And that's the idea. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, okay. You stopped me on my tracks on that one. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, like I said, we're coming to the end of our time. I want to say huge thanks to Julia Claiborne Johnson for joining us. Hey, Julia, do you want to give us any hints about what's coming next? Because I know everybody is anxious to see what you have in store for us. She says, while we're waiting for that answer, I will read what Julia just said. That's why Mimi had to be a writer. She wrote the book. Oh, then had to raise the kid. What scene? You broke me up and I didn't hear it. Oh, the scene where her brother kills himself. He's in her dorm room. He's saying what he needs, he's telling her what he needs to say. He walks to the window, opens the window, and he's gone. You don't go into a whole bunch of details that we didn't need. I mean, it's like it's like the scene is written on the knife's edge, as it should be. Julia, Ange says, thank you so much for creating these wonderful characters. I agree. They were just, they were wonderful. All of them. And you know, I do respect Mimi's mom. Particularly, you know, man, if I didn't have such a patient saint of a husband, who knows where my poor children would end up. I hope this has been an enjoyable experience for you, Julia. I mean, I know you took time out of your afternoon, especially when you were brain dead. Everybody's saying thank you. This was such a surprise. This was such a surprise, and huge thanks to Renee Rosen for putting us in touch. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes. Julia says, he realizes, Frank does, that Alice needs to use a handkerchief. He recognizes, oh my goodness, that is the evolution. Oh, and it's so beautifully subtle. Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, the dorm room scene was rough. Okay, well, Julia, if you want to pitch anything or add anything in the comments, the stage is yours. In the meantime, while we're waiting for that, oh, Frank recognizes the emotions she's feeling from studying the chart. Yeah. We had that chart on our fridge for many, many years. Oh, you guys, thank you. No, thank you. So yeah, in the meantime, Kelly says she lost her comment to cyberspace. It's been a few years since I read it, but I seem to remember Frank's mom was such an advocate for him. And I've always felt that was such an important part of parenting, supporting all their idiosyncrasies, because you don't know, oh, this is so true. You don't know where it will lead and benefit them as they grow up. Okay. Ooh, new news on Julia's next book. Next book is set in 1930s Reno on a divorce ranch. Oh my God. Oh, I hope I'm on the ARC list. In real life, my father worked as a cowboy on one. Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. My mom grew up in a, well, no. The day after she graduated from high school, her parents moved from San Pedro, California, to a ranch in Searchlight, Nevada, before Searchlight, Nevada was even a place. Yeah, so we've had lots of discussions about Reno. I cannot wait for that book. Okay, I'm thrilled. In the meantime, huge thanks to Julia. Huge thanks to all of you. I am so enjoying doing these book clubs. Tune in next week for Anne Garvin. It's going to be a delight. And the book is, it's her third one, I Like You Just Fine When You're Not Around. And Anne also has a book coming up. I'm not quite sure what the release date is, but hopefully she'll tell us a little bit about that one. If you guys could like my Facebook page, pass this book club on, forward the posts, invite your friends. It's taken off, and it's been a real pleasure for me, and I want to keep doing it. It's been a delight. All right, until then, until next Tuesday, we shall see you again. Skål, toast, cheers. Here's to reading, here's to laughing. Everybody stay safe. We're all going to be in this together. All right, take care.